All right, you guys. So here we are, January, a week, 2 weeks removed from the Xbox Developer Direct for 2026. And we get all the posts, all the videos, all the content, etc., of everyone saying this is Xbox's year. This is the year they bring it home. We have Halo, Gears, Forza, Fable allegedly going to release all in this year. Xbox is bringing it back. We're celebrating Xbox. And all that stuff is cool and all, but I have so much deja vu of every January. I feel like this happens where we say this is Xbox's year, and by December of that year, we're always like, damn, what the hell did Xbox do? Xbox crap to bed. And I feel like going into 2026, this is probably by far, I think, the worst reception going into an Xbox year, contradicted by probably some of the hype is because they are celebrating Xbox allegedly. They are bringing back the goats, the IPs that made Xbox with Halo, Gears, Fable, and Forza. And I guess in this video, I just want to talk about 2026 for Xbox, what they need to do to make me happy, I guess, and overall, how do they find themselves in this situation? Which is what are they doing, and what are they gonna be doing? What should they be doing? Not that I'm obviously a billion-dollar company like Microsoft or whatever. Like obviously, whatever they're doing works for them. But in the eyes of the consumers and everything, yeah, Xbox as a brand is very weak, and they need to do a lot to change the perception of what Xbox is and can be and will be, right? So before we get into the video, if you guys can like the video, subscribe, let me know down below your guys' thoughts, and we can move on forward with that. All right. So Xbox, I think, has a lot of misunderstandings as far as what they are, not just internally, but I think within the consumer base. I think most of us can kind of agree that Xbox as a hardware manufacturer isn't really isn't really necessary anymore. Like everyone has hype for the Nintendo Switch 2. There's always conversation about the PS5. A lot of people play their PS5s a lot more. People buy games on PS5. People buy Xbox games on PS5. There's people buying more Xbox games on PS5 than on Xbox native hardware. And that's concerning when we look at it from the hardware. And I think going into 2026, I think this is the first year going into it that no one, when we talk about Xbox, no one's referencing the hardware, right? No one's talking about the Xbox Series S or Xbox Series X. I feel like even 3 years ago, we were arguing passionately whether or not the Xbox Series S was a mistake, whether the Xbox Series X should exist, blah, 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 right? And a lot of the biggest arguments were they didn't have games. And I still hear going into 2026 the conversation of, oh, Xbox doesn't have games. When if we look at just 2025 alone, Xbox published more games than Nintendo and PlayStation, right? And released them like Grounded 2, Outer Worlds 2, Avowed, Gears of War Reloaded, South of Midnight, Keeper. Like the list goes on about games that Xbox either developed or published. And for whatever reason, again, it is what it is. I think a lot of those games were. I don't think any. I don't think any of those games are really bad. I think a lot of them weren't like game of the year, you know, Claire Expedition level of amazing. But I don't think Nintendo really had that either, and not really. I mean, maybe Donkey Kong Bonanza if you're that person, but I still don't think Donkey Kong Bonanza was like you know God of War 2018 levels of reception. It wasn't that groundbreaking. It was definitely groundbreaking. It was definitely great for a lot of people, but it wasn't that. And Xbox didn't have any games that really shook the foundation of gaming, right? And you can say that's a good or a bad thing. I think if not, they at least released quality titles at a very consistent pace. And it sucks that in a year where they had probably one of the most outputs that they've had in a very long time, they're still looked at as Xbox doesn't have games, and or good games. A lot of people still say that they've released a lot of bad games, and I don't think Doom's Dark Ages, Outer Worlds 2. Like I don't think these are bad games, but I don't think they're compelling enough to lift Xbox out of the situation they find themselves in. And I think if we look into 2026, Forza Horizon is going to be an amazing game. It's Forza Horizon. We all know this. It's consistently one of the best games that released in the year that it releases. And we have no doubt that that's going to be a bad game. We have Halo Combat Evolved or Halo Campaign Evolved, which is a remake of the original Halo campaign. Which don't get me wrong, that's cool. But every time I look back at Halo, anytime anyone looks back at Halo, really, most of us I think look back at our times playing the multiplayer game. And if this releases without a multiplayer, I feel like it's just going to be it's going to miss the mark for most of people. I personally don't have too much nostalgia or want to go back to play Halo's campaign unless they do something completely crazy with it. I think if they were to do this campaign evolved, I think they'll have to do something crazy to make it different. They'd have to like reimagine it completely in a way that I think sets expectations for what they're going to be doing in the future. And I just don't think that's Xbox anymore. Xbox isn't the company that's groundbreaking. Xbox isn't the company that's shaking things up in the gaming space. Xbox is in full survival mode, I think, where they're just trying to find any crack to put their games in that they can just sell. And I think again, that's fine from a publishing aspect. I think they're doing their thing where they're making more money on their games probably now than they have been, in a long time. And that's good for Xbox as a brand, but it's not changing the waves of reception that they're receiving. It's very apathetic at best. I think most people are like can't get excited for Xbox because they've been let down so much by Xbox. And even when we look at Fable, which at one point in time, Fable's for me one of my favorite RPGs I've ever played. Fable and Fable 2, I had amazing time playing those games. I I don't know. There's not a lot of other games that really encapsulate what Fable did, from its humor to its world to its RPG mechanics. Like it was just such a cool game. It was almost like Grand Theft Auto, but in medieval times. It was just very like sandboxy. A lot of cool quests, a lot of cool like world building. A lot of it was really really cool. I love the like dynamic effects of like if you were the more bad things you did, the more evil you looked, and when you did good things you like developed a halo and stuff like that was really really cool. And like the way the world like responded to the things that you did was really really cool. And I've been very excited for a Fable game for a long time, but after a while of hearing, oh, Fable, we're working on Fable, and really not getting anything out of it, if this trailer for the developer direct isn't groundbreaking, isn't amazing, if they don't go deep into weeds of what this game is actually going to look like and play like, then I'm scared there's not going to be like we can't give them any more. Like they have to release this game, and it has to be amazing. If not, if it's just another apathetic, reception to this game, then I don't know. Xbox I feel like is falling closer in line to like the Ubisofts of the world, where they release games. They release a lot of games, a lot of quality titles that aren't, you know, that are just kind of are formulaic or just they're just there, and that sucks because again, Xbox is one of those used to be one of those three pillars of gaming, and I don't know, that pillar has crumbled completely, and I don't even think they're making attempts to rebuild it, which is the Microsoft part. Because none of this is to reflect on the game studios that Xbox owns. I think when you look at Obsidian, I think when you look at Playgrounds and everybody, I think they're trying their best. But ultimately, when you're under a corporation like Microsoft, they have bottom lines they need to hit. They have deadlines. They have expectations. They have a lot of moving parts, and every part in the machine has to play its part, or else, you know what I mean? And Xbox has been riddled with layoffs, controversy. Microsoft, one of the most controversial, companies, in the world. going into 2026. And like I couldn't imagine the feeling of being a game developer under that house. That for me wouldn't feel comfortable. I wouldn't feel safe making a game. I wouldn't feel safe trying to be groundbreaking or trying to be as creative as possible. I think I'll like the only way to be safe in that environment is put your head down and get to work, you know? And I think a lot of that is what we're getting from the outside is that we're getting a lot of cool, interesting games that if they were on any other, you know, publisher or any other platform, or if PlayStation 5 released Outer Worlds 2, I think it would have had a very, very different reception than if it is on Xbox. And that suck. At least that's just my feeling. That's my thoughts. It's just there's such negativity around the energy and environment of what Xbox is that it's kind of bringing down everybody. It's bringing down every team. And Obsidian, prior to being purchased by Xbox, was looked at as like one of the greatest RPG developers of all time. And somewhere along the path, we lost that, you know. And really, what they Obsidian released two, three, or four games under Xbox, right? Pentiment, Outer Worlds 2, Avowed, and Grounded, and now Grounded 2. So like I don't know. Obsidian has been a workhorse and has been releasing games and has been giving it their all. And I just feel like over time we're becoming a lot more apathetic to what Obsidian accomplished. And I'm affected by this too. I can't lie. Like I never played Outer Worlds, so I wasn't super excited about the sequel. But when I do hear people talk about the game and a lot of the stuff that it's doing with RPG mechanics, I mean, it sounds cool. And it, but I don't know why I'm just not compelled to go play it. And this goes, I think, across the entire board. I love Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, and when Doom Dark Ages came out, I just didn't feel compelled to get it, and I'm struggling to understand why this is, and I think it is just the branding of Xbox sucks. The branding of Xbox maybe not want to play their games or be a part of it, and it like Xbox just has to do a lot this year, especially if we're gonna say this is the big, celebration anniversary year of Xbox, and we're hitting hard with our heavy hitters. The people who brought us to the show, the IPs that have stood the test of time when we think of Xbox with again Forza, Halo, Gears, and Fable. Like these are iconic franchise and IPs, and like Forza alone, we know Forza is gonna be amazing, but we know that alone isn't gonna cut it, right? You're gonna need more than just Forza because they've always had Forza, and Forza's always done great, but that hasn't been enough to keep Xbox, in the limelight positively. It's gonna take all of those IPs to hit it, whether it's Fable, Gears, Halo, and Forza. And I personally don't think they have the chops. Not the studios or developers, but Xbox as a brand, I don't think knows how to look at its game portfolios, look at its developers, and lead them in the right direction. And that sucks. It sucks that all these games that Xbox has released have come so close to being probably amazing or great. It's just they missed the mark. And it's one of those type of things that uh, I I, c- I loved Xbox growing up, and it sucks to see them have such a wet blanket response when they are announcing a developer direct. I feel like any other type of showcase or direct would be a lot more exciting than an Xbox direct. And I see people, I guess quote unquote getting excited, but really the conversation's kind of like, can they prove us wrong? You know, will they prove us wrong? And I guess I'm just making this video to say like my expectation is very low. Um, I'm I am looking forward to Fable, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably looking forward to playing that on anything else away from Xbox, and the whole Xbox around it makes me not want to play it. And I don't know if I'm alone in this. I don't know if other people are feeling the same way, but this is the reception I feel. And when I hear people talk about Xbox, what I kind of gather is just there's not excitement for Xbox, no matter what they do, and that sucks. What could Xbox do in the future to fix this? I mean, this like I don't want to say this has to be year because I'm gonna be honest. It should have been the year 5 years ago. It should have been the year 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Like those were their opportunities to make sure we're not living in this apathetical Xbox world that we're living in. But they missed their mark consistently and consistently and consistently, and now we're here. Now we're at the point where like they missed their mark and no one cares anymore. And I don't know if there was any year that they have the biggest shot though, it's probably this year. But even when I look at them saying, "Hey, we're bringing back Halo, Gears, and everything else," Halo is a remake of the original campaign, not even a multiplayer. So good luck wowing us, right? Gears of War, I love Gears of War. It is you know, what do you call it? Like a before game video game. It's like a precursor to the original Gears of War 1. Which don't get me wrong, that's a great idea. Bring it back to its roots. But that just screams of we don't know how to move forward. We only know how to go backwards. We can't like after this. What happens then? Do you go to Gears 6 and continue the story because people were not happy with where Gears 5 left off? So what do you do then? Do you just reimagine the story, reboot the entire franchise? I'm like, freak it, fuck it. Like I say, reboot all of Xbox, reboot everything. This isn't Fable 4. This is Fable. This Gears of War, like reboot the franchise and start again. Do something new. Like reboot all of Xbox. If this was a breakdown of everything Xbox has built and say, hey, we're going back to, you know, early 2000s and we're just saying we're restarting from the get-go, we're restarting from what we're doing. I think that's what Xbox needs is like such a veer right off course. Like you take your IPs and go back to making them impactful franchises in gaming. Nintendo did it, right? When you look at Nintendo Wii U and then you go to the Switch, they did an amazing job of rebranding their failures, right? Legend of Zelda was not in a great place before Breath of the Wild, but they reimagined what that game could be. And even if we go look say going to Switch 2, Donkey Kong, right? They reimagined what Donkey Kong could be and got garnered so much excitement over an IP that has been pretty dormant for a long time. And I think Xbox needs to do that. They need to not just cultivate new IPs, but reimagine what Xbox could be. And I'm hoping that I know they won't. Like, I know that it's going to be 2026, it's going to be another 2025, another 2024. It's going to be a lot of games released that are receptionally middling. I know a lot of those games were not middling, like Outer Worlds 2, Double Dark. I know those games weren't middling, but the reception was very middling. And I think that's the problem is that a lot of the games aren't shaking the foundation of what we want it to. And most of the times I would say you don't need to, right? I don't think Ghost of Yotei for PlayStation needed to be groundbreaking because PlayStation is in such a great place, at least financially and their IPs. They're not in the same situation that Xbox is in, so they're coasting. Xbox, who is so far behind competition, they're not even in the competition anymore. You know, has to do so much if they want to be in the conversation. Which brings me to the final point of I don't think Microsoft wants Xbox in the conversation against PlayStation and against Nintendo anymore, right? Like we've kind of established this. Microsoft is fine kind of plugging their games everywhere they can and making, the money off of that, and that's great because Microsoft isn't a gaming, company. They don't care about the reception in the gaming space or what consumers of gaming culture care about their games as long as dollar signs, you know, which according to all accounts, Xbox and Microsoft are making more money now than they have been in a long time. And like it just sucks that this brand has been watered down so heavily to the point of what's the point almost? It almost feels like I don't want to get excited for the next Halo or Gears of War or Fable or anything because history has showed me that Microsoft isn't excited about it. So in turn, Xbox can't be that's excited about it. So in turn, the developers are working under a house that is not excited about what they're doing quality wise, just how much quantity of dollar bills can it make at the end, you know? And I just couldn't imagine working under that. But anyways, I ranted long enough about Xbox and what I hope they do and what this developer direct hopefully does. Let me know again. Let me know down below what you guys think. Sorry if I rambled too much, but yeah, I'm gonna end the video there.